Leave the child alone.
All right, come on, guys, get real. This is what happens when Solomon's not here. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. We're going to start tonight's discussion with interracial dating. And for those of you who don't know, this is the 50 Shades of Red at Night podcast. My name is Naomi Minhas. I'm going to be your host. And we have a couple people on our panel. We have a few more people joining us later on. I'm going to go one by one. Thomas, you can go first. Introduce yourself. Sharice, AJ.
Unfortunately, I'm Naomi's uncle, and I'm grizzly tonight. I have degrees. I have a degree in psychology and a minor in statistics. I'm working on a graduate degree in human behavior and counseling. So, and I also date white women exclusively. So,
Sharice.
Hello, I'm Sharice Lane. I am a sophomore in college, and my major is communications with a minor in political science, and I'm also a Black conservative. And I'm just here today to discuss this interesting conversation.
AJ.
Hello, my name is AJ. I'm an engineer by day and a ninja by night, and I can't wait to know that. Why are you laughing at me?
ninja by night. Wow.
Just please don't laugh at me because I'm very sensitive.
Okay, Solomon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh God. Hey, what's up? This is Saul G. I guess I'm gonna be co-hosting tonight. I don't know what else y'all want me to say. I guess I am on the side of I guess majority Black women, but open to everybody, but just never explored it. So I guess that's where we're gonna start.
Okay, great. So I guess I'll go ahead and start the discussion off with I guess the only man here tonight. We're waiting on a few other people, but Tommy, go ahead and shed a little bit of light on why you date predominantly white women and how you think it affects the culture by you doing so.
Well, I think we live in a dynamic where it's by choice. I think in the earlier years, a lot of, like mostly celebrities, athletes, and things like that, I think African American men chose to do that for status symbols because they feel as though they've arrived professionally and socially to why they date women of the opposite color of Caucasian women. So, but why I do it is primarily by choice, but also by statistics. I meant my statistics is my minor, so I'm into a lot of statistics. Why more African American men are incarcerated, and we're only 13% of the populace. Why we tend not to embrace more positive dietary habits and things like that, as opposed to our white counterparts, especially for females. So that drew my interest, and in my experiences, the white females that I encounter tend to be more proactive in fitness, more proactive in education. And it's not to slam or knock African American women. It's just, at my age, I've dated a lot. I've dated off and on, but the women that I'm currently dating are Caucasian women. I find them interesting. I find them in some areas exotic, and it's more for me by choice.
You dating white women?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do you think there's economic advantages to you dating white women?
I think so. I think that educationally they're advantageous. I mean, again, it's about statistics. A lot more white women tend to attend college, tend to obtain education degrees in various fields, and in itself it's an education because you get to learn what experiences they're going through or they're studying for, and certain things like I was talking about on our last chat. A lot of times you get to meet people from, I guess, for lack of a better expression, from the other side of the track that we may never get to experience as African American men, their lifestyles, their habits, because we seem to conform. We seem to embrace, and it's just the way the cultures are. We tend to embrace certain behaviors, interests, socially interests, and having in entertainment and certain things, and we seem to conform to certain styles of how we perceive ourselves and how we how our particular interests are. Whereas you get an education and learning how their interests are that is in common, and it's I find it fascinating, to be honest. So
Huh.
Okay. Solomon,
yeah.
we had a discussion earlier, and you kind of said to me, you don't date white women. You said that. You were like, you're not necessarily attracted to them. How do you feel about people like Tommy exclusively choosing to date white women for reasons other than attraction?
Well, I mean, like I always say, to each his own. But at the same time, I always kind of side eye at the exclusivity part, right? Like to me, I always say, if you date who you want to date, I'm not here to judge anybody on their preference. But I always am curious when someone has a preference and the preference is opposite of, I guess, their culture or their race, because
I think it's
for
opposite.
me, it seems that there is I don't want to say sometimes a disconnect, but to me, there's always like a somewhat of a turning point, like, because I feel like the natural response is to kind of go with something that is like if you go into a group of people, it seems like you always click up with people. Like, for example, when we went to YPLS, we all kind of knew each other first, but I still feel like if we would have never kind of talked, we would have still kind of gravitated towards each other, because you kind of go towards like-minded and people who kind of sort of look, not necessarily look like you, but you kind of just gravitate towards a similar type of person. So I said that I had never like officially like dated a white person before. And it's not necessarily that I don't find them attractive. It's just been a point where when I'm dating, I've never just, like I said, I've never just been out and just been like, oh, let me go talk to this white girl, because it's always been like a bunch of, I guess, black women ahead. So it's been a situation for me where it's not necessarily that I'm against dating white women. I just haven't done it up until this point. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like when I hear what you're saying and we're talking about economic advantages and things like that, I don't necessarily know how true or how untrue that is, because I don't have any experience. So you would be more of an expert on that. But like I said, when I hear this, because I think about the same way when I hear white women who only date black men, I kind of sort of look at them kind of like, why? You understand what I'm saying? Because like there is, while there might be an advantage on our side, I look at it like, what are they gaining? Because most of the time, they don't necessarily, it's not as bad as it was like 50 years ago, but there is some sort of social pariah effect that happens, I think, when white women date black men, especially because I know a lot of my white friends, that they find out that a white girl has dated a black guy, they won't mess with her, because they basically feel like she's I don't know. I mean, it's almost like a bridge they won't cross. So that's
Right.
the reason why, like I said, I do look at everyone who specifically only dates one race and they don't date others. Now, if you're open to everybody, that's fine. Like I said, everybody has their preference. But when you close yourself off to an entire group of people, then, I'm not saying I have a problem with it. I'm just always curious as to why do you not allow yourself to be open to all people, and you cut yourself off from, like I said, an entire group of women.
Well, if I may interject for clarity, personally for myself, I don't close out other races. It's a preference. I choose to date white women. I just find them fascinating in the women I've dated and are currently dating. Um, when I hear that, I hear a lot of conformity in it. It's almost like you got to date your race kind of demeanor. And a lot of people do that. Socially we meet women and we tend to look to meet black women. It's subconscious and even in some instances unconscious, behaviorally speaking. But the point is, if you find people that are fascinating and interesting, and also that you, because every date is also an education. You get to learn certain things that in your own culture that we aren't exposed to, that they may advantageously are exposed to, and that's what fascinates me. Um, so I'm open-minded. It's not just white women. It's also Asian women and Latin women. I've had like my jeweler. She's black, and we go out and eat and do things like that. So it's not like we don't date. But primarily, I like dating white women because I just find on so many levels that they're, and I've dated, of course, dated black women. I have never not dated black women. It's just that I find white women at this stage of my life and at this stage of where I am academically and things like that a lot interesting. And when I speak about statistics, if you look through statistics, you'll see where we stand as a culture. And it's not knocking the culture, because I've had people attack me and say, "Oh, you're against your culture and you're not supporting your culture." But look at the statistics where we are as far as prison, as far as education, as far as socialization, as far as diet, exercise, and things like that. We're in the negative boxes, whether we want to believe that or not. It's not me saying this; it's the statistics. If you add them up, and to be 13% of the populace in this country, um, it's pretty. It's not. We need to really reinforce that. I support all women, but as far as my social life and as far as dating is concerned, I just find them fascinating for me, um, because black men tend to just go with what black men go with. It either they fear the repercussion of being told, why are you crossing the line, or why would you do this and why would you do that in anything, but specifically in dating. So we just conform. We just go along because everybody else does. More than that, well, maybe I should talk to her because I find her attractive, or maybe I find her interesting, not just physically, but intellectually and in other areas.
So,
So
Thomas, are you insinuating that black men that choose black women are doing so out of performance and not because they are genuinely attracted to black women in the same way that you are genuinely attracted to white women?
not at all. I think, well, that's not true. I think a lot of times it's just like, well, a lot of blacks like to be Democrats. A lot of blacks like R&B. I mean, they're kind of poor examples, but I think you get the gist of where I'm going with it. It's just that we tend to, and not openly on an outward level, but we tend to conform because we know our friends do it, or we get in a clique of friends that look, if we go to a club or party or wherever we're headed, that look to meet, and within ourselves we just attract our own race. Most races through the years just attract with each other because like was spoken earlier, we have an association where we're like-minded in certain experiences, certain trials and tribulations, where we think, okay, they'll understand. Whereas I do it because I like, it's like if you this may be a bad example. It's like if you go traveling, you visit other countries and other cultures, you may find them fascinating. And you may say, yeah, I went to Paris, or I went to Japan, and I found the Japanese are like this, and people in the French are like this, that kind of thing. But I think here we tend to date within our race because we tend to conform to doing so. We tend to say this is what we're supposed to do rather than more choice. It's more like we just go along rather than say, well, I know this woman's beautiful and she's just not black, and I may be outwardly attracted to her, but something within me, my conformity may say, well, I really need to stay with the sisters and date them.
Gotcha.
And,
Well,
yeah.
go ahead. Go on, Ace. I got some. See, the question that I would have is now. I understand what you're saying, and you say like it's a preference thing, and it's not like you tend to attract, but it's also a selection process, right? Because, like I said, I don't know which city you're in, but most cities have their certain areas where you can go to find technically what you're looking for. So, like for example, me, I stay in Southwest Atlanta. So the only women I run into are black. Now you can say that's a conformist thing, but if I want the white women, I have to go to where the white women are. You understand what I'm saying? So it's also in that selection process, if I go, like for example, in Atlanta, if I got two clubs that I go to, if I go to a club called Venue, I'm going because there are going to be plenty of black women there. If I go to the Havana Club, now all of a sudden I've opened myself up to black women, Hispanic women, white women. Everybody is going to be at that type of club. So a situation where isn't kind of where you choose to hang out or where you choose to go, or when you're single and you choose the quote unquote selection process, aren't you kind of sort of probably more, and I'm not assuming, but I can assume that you're probably going to areas where there aren't a lot of black women.
No, that's not true. There's a saturation in those clubs, like you were mentioning, that they're going to be a majority of black women there. So you make the choice to go there because comfortably there are a lot of black women there, and that may be your preference. I don't go. It's a lot of go soul searching everywhere because I just meet them all over. In the business that I'm in, I meet primarily more white women, and then sometimes you just have an attraction. It's not I go there primarily to meet them. It's just if I run across them and we click, so be it. But even if I go to a place saturated with black women, and you're going to have some white women in there, and you're going to have some other races in there, I may choose to sort out that particular woman if I find her attractive, and see where it goes. But if you focus on going to one particular area primarily knowing that this particular demographic is going to be there, then that's what I assume that's what you're looking to get into and looking to meet. It's the bottom.
AJ, did you want to go ahead and comment what you were saying in the chat?
No, I was just trying to reconcile the desire for conformity that Thomas is purporting that black men have with the natural nature to look for people that look like you, or people that are sexually compatible with you. If you're going to make an argument that black men are choosing black women out of their desire to conform, then can we also make the same argument to women in general, that black men are looking for women because being heterosexual is the societal norm? The sweeping majority of people in society are heterosexual. And if that's true, then would you make the same argument that why aren't more guys bi or why aren't more guys gay? They're just that way. They just choose to be straight because of their desire to conform to society's expectations of them.
Not necessarily. You have gay men who sort out specific gay men regardless of color or particular color. If you're gay and you choose to just date white men, then as a gay black man, then it boils down to preference. I get your argument here. I get your contention here. It's just that I'm not saying everybody conforms to everything that's quote unquote the norm. Since we're specifically talking about black men dating white women, primarily it's preference, but it has a lot of variables to it. Primarily it's preference. I think it would really boil down to the black man and why that particular man made that particular choice. For myself, my particular choices are various. Education and other areas, and again statistics.
Well,
because
what Tommy is saying while you're on that, I think it's important to note too, the people we were around. I think this goes back generations also in the way people are raised. I know growing up, like my mother and my grandmother, they always said don't date black, and my grandmother was from the South and she married a black man. And her reason for doing so was economic as well as the social aspect of their marriage. So for her telling me don't date black was a way of saying don't date black because it'll negatively impact your life and the upbringing of your children.
And I'm the opposite of that. Everybody in my family is dated or married to white. My brothers and cousins are dated and married to white women. And even my father is married to white women, but I happen to marry black, and I've only dated black women in my single days. My opinion is that it's just that preference is a individual choice, and even though we are a product of our environment, that if you like white women, that's what you like. You can't explain it. There's Jewish guys that love Asian girls. There's Asian girls that love white guys. It's just a matter of there's guys that like guys and girls that like girls.
Well,
It's a choice, and the circumstance will influence your preference, but your preference won't be decided by. I don't think preference is decided by a person's desire to fit in. I think it's more of just
I agree with
something that's
some
a
of
little
that,
more
but
visceral.
I disagree with part of it because you get a lot of Asian women that will not date black men that come over to this country and are told not to because of stereotypes we cast, where we kill each
100%.
other. We're not economically viable. We're not educated as compared to our white counterparts. And I'm going by statistics. This isn't something I'm just popping out of my head. You'll see a lot of Asian women, if they're dating out of their race primarily, and through my experiences and even through studies, reading journals and things like that at grad school, they tend to gravitate towards, even on campus, you'll see it, they gravitate towards their white counterparts if they date out of their race compared to,
I agree.
not everybody's going to be Russell Simmons where you can get the, you can get the Asian woman because he's wealthy. I mean, I think her motive is not to knock her or him. It's just I knew primarily that he's a successful individual, and that had to stimulate. Well, anyone that would stimulate. You have a person that's successful, you gravitate towards that.
So Gia's father only dates Asian women. He was actually here last night with his Korean girlfriend, and we were talking about all the women he's dated before. Me being Asian, the one before me being Asian. He's never dated non-Asian. So I said to him, "Don't you think that kind of makes you racially biased because you refuse to even have intercourse with a black woman?" And he said, "No, that's not it. I just prefer Asian, but I'm pro-black." You can't be pro-black if you're not procreating with a black woman. And I think Dr. Johnson preaches that all the time. He says, I lose respect for people, men, and specifically because they preach black. I love my African brothers and sisters, but they won't have black children.
Well, the thing also is that it's the myth. You like the gentleman spoke earlier. You have white women that may be curious about the myth, like black men are large and they're this and they're that, and they're dominant in the bedroom. So some of them, a lot of it also is curiosity. Even for me, is what is it like? I've had people, I've had people say, "What is it like dating a white woman?" Like it's something. There's still humanity at the end of the day, but you get people that they've never dated that because for whatever reasons they never dated that person, and they may see me with a white girlfriend and go, what's it like dating her? And it's just like dating any other woman. It's just her skin color is different, and her experiences may be different as compared to someone I've dated that's within my race. So it has so many layers to it, that each individual has their own reasons why. Some people do it, like with O.J. Simpson. I believe he did it for status. I believe those professionals did it. Tiger Woods dates white women exclusively. I think because of his status. I think because they gravitate towards him being not non-threatening, and he breaks stereotypes. He's a very articulate man. He's a professional athlete. He's wealthy, and I think they can respond to that a lot easier than if you got the thug on a corner slinging dope that can't barely read or write, that they would want someone that they can easily relate and not embarrass them. A lot of times you may.
I'm sorry. So I got a question, because I heard something that you said a couple of times about statistics and other things you said as well. In your opinion, because we talked about people who are affluent, we talked about kind of celebrities, sports players. Do you feel that white women are somewhat of a status symbol? Like, do you feel that if you are with a white woman, like it is a symbol of, not necessarily like wealth, but it's almost like a symbol that you kind of made it versus, and then the second part of the question is, can a black woman be that? If yes, then can a black woman be a status symbol as well? Because I would say no, just based on what I see in like general thing. It seems like you mentioned Tiger Woods. I remember basically the whole cast from Black Panther showed up to the previews with white women. Michael B. Jordan's taking a lot of flack because he's never around black women. And I do believe that something like you said, that I don't want to get too deep and say go back to that slavery,
Right.
that
Right.
forbidden fruit almost, but I do believe that's a part of it. And for some reason,
Absolutely.
it doesn't seem like Black men, once they achieve a certain level of success, like take Blake Griffin, for example, his baby mama is white. And it's like, I understand Blake Griffin is mixed race, but it's like the white woman who he was with already had a baby by another football player. So it's a
Right.
situation where, to me, I feel like there is a status symbol somewhat with a white woman versus that. So I want to know what your opinion is. So I didn't make it clear. Go ahead.
No, you made it perfectly clear, and I agree 100%. I think for those individuals, not for myself, but for those individuals, it is a status symbol. I think that they finally say to themselves, "I've arrived," because I can also cross other dynamics by dating outside of my race. I'm this professional person. I'm popular. I'm this. I'm successful. And now I have this white woman, especially as a man. I have this white woman. Yes, Blake Griffin is like myself. He's multiracial, but by definition in this country, he's, when you have that percentage of black in you, you're a black man. So when he's marching around with his white wife or girlfriend or whoever she is, for him, I believe for him, but I'm not Blake Griffin, so I really can't nail that down. But I do believe that for some of those individuals that are on those platforms, they see this as a symbol of status. Going back to OJ, I believe he did it solely for status because OJ is not conforming. He's like what Beyonce is today. A lot of cultures listen to her music. And it's not to get too far off the topic, but look at the type of hairstyle she wears. She has someone whispering in her ear to cross over. You got to have that look. Look at the 30s and 40s where singers process their hair and all that to conform, to cross over for money reasons. And I'm not saying that's Beyonce. Beyonce is extremely talented, but and yes, her husband's black. But
Go ahead, AJ.
No. Go to Sharice. I want to hear what Sharice has to say. I'm drinking and listening.
Okay, so my dad is Jamaican and he's Chinese, and okay, my parents are divorced, so I've seen my dad date plenty of women out of black, such as Chinese, Hispanic, white, German. He's with a Haitian lady now, but I just think it's just preference. I don't necessarily think the reasons that Thomas?
Yeah.
The reasons that he gave was really good, were really good reasons, because like black women can be financially stable as well and can really have themselves up to par. So but I don't think there's anything wrong with dating outside your race. If you just want to do that, if you want to experience something different, then go for that. At the end of the day, you can still be pro-black and date outside your race. I think that is okay.
I don't think that's true at all. You can't be pro-black to a certain extent. You can, but when we're talking to Dr. Umar Johnson pro-blacks and the Montega pro-blacks, it kind of ruins your brand, don't you think? To be out there picking in and white man, and then hey, by the way, like let's throw Don Lemon in there, pro-black, that anybody who hates Don Lemon is.
Oh my gosh, Naomi, my wife would agree with you 110%.
Well, I think that if you want to speak against, like such as Don Lemon, he spoke against a race and then dated that race, then I can say, okay, that's something wrong with that, because you can't speak against them.
I agree. Yeah.
A lot of pro-black people do speak against them. They do.
Then that's something different.
So let me ask you a question, Naomi. Why do you think? Why is it that a person is not qualified to speak on a situation when they act in a manner that's not seems to be counterproductive to the agenda that they're pushing forward? You can't be pro-black and be with white women, but we have plenty of white people that can speak on, that we grant license when we were at YBLS to speak on black people's behalfs, but with the case of black men, they can't. Help me to understand.
Well, yeah, let me inject really quick. Define what your definition of pro-black is.
Okay.
What is pro-black to you? What is this pro-black thing?
I think that's good, Thomas. Let's start there.
Yeah.
First of all, let's start with that. What is pro-black to me? Pro-black is pro-black to me is someone who advocates for the progression of Black people, Black families, right? Who push Black culture forward by engaging in their community and doing things that would have a positive effect on Black people's progress, right?
Well, how about dating white women would damage that? You can still be pro-Black and just have a preference for dating somebody out there.
So let's first address what you said, AJ, in regard to the people who spoke at YDLS. The white man who dated the Black woman in their, I think, 60s or 70s that were talking, they were inaccurate in a lot of their facts regarding what they were saying. So let's just start with that. Clearly, a white man cannot know Black history like we think they can, because he was wrong with a lot of things he was saying, speaking to an all-Black crowd in regard to Emmett Till's life story. So that's number one. I think that when it comes to advocating pro-Black everything, if you have a white wife, you live in a majority white neighborhood, and your kids go to a predominantly white school, you don't necessarily relate to the typical Black community. You don't. Like, I have a mixed race child. She looks white.
That's exactly my biography.
She goes to a white school. I can't sit here and march down the street with a sign that says Black people don't get fair rights, because guess what? My daughter isn't directly affected by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can go forth and talk about the effects by the system, right, that they would have on her. But at the end of the day, I think those effects are void and they're not valid.
Well, Nami, to your point, I grew up in an all-white neighborhood. When I went to in my senior prom, we had my graduating class in high school was 900 people, and we had 8 Black people at prom, and every single one of us brought somebody our date that was not a student at school. So it was like less than 5%, or I can't even do the math, like less than 1% Black. But are you saying that because I married a Black woman that I'm qualified to speak on Black matters and be pro-Black? Because my background, my upbringing would would expect me to be the total, crispity crunchity coon.
No, I'm saying when you procreate with your wife, you're going to have Black children, and those children aren't going to be mixed with a little bit of this, a little bit. No, they're going to be Black. Okay, they're going to look Black. They're going to be 100% by blood Black, right? So they can go ahead and push the progression of Black families. Or if they were to date outside their race, that's totally okay. It's acceptable. They like what they like. It's preference, right? But you can't sit here and say I want to advocate for Black people when you're not even procreating with your race. You don't believe in Black people enough.
Okay, so you're saying so on that note, you're saying that like a white person can advocate for Black people because they don't have any skin in the game if they
exactly,
but if they're not going to produce kids. But but a Black person cannot, because they do have skin in the game, literally.
But that's like saying, okay, like Colin Kaepernick, right? He's mixed race, right?
Difficult.
Colin Kaepernick is mixed race. In an effort to push the Black Lives Matter movement, he took a knee, right? And a lot of people said he wasn't Black enough to be pushing that agenda. A lot of people said because of how he looked, he wasn't Black enough. And that's the thing. There are some white people who have mixed children, right? And they go ahead and speak out. But if you look, a lot of these celebrities that are speaking out on behalf of Black people and marching with Black Lives Matter, they don't have Black kids. If you look at all these celebrities that go and adopt children from Africa, they don't raise them Black. They're not out here valuing or advocating for Black people's rights or anything, even though they've got true African American children. That says a lot.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I gotta. I think no, you're good. I think there is some. I kind of understand what I think Naomi's trying to say, and by the definition of pro-Black, because what I feel is there is a certain not a relatability, but you have to basically be able to have some sort of legitimacy to what you're saying. So the problem is, it's not about if you're white that you can't necessarily, in my opinion, you can't necessarily advocate for Black things because you don't have any skin in the game. The problem is when you're to the extreme. Like, that's the reason why Don Lemon is brought up, because if I'm sitting here saying the big white man is this big scary animal, but this is who I bring into my bedroom, it diminishes the argument versus someone, I know she brought up Dr. Umar Johnson earlier. Dr. Umar Johnson has the same pro-Black. When he says he's pro-Black or he's a Pan-African, he's basically saying that the key to the Black family is continuing the Black family. So you can't continue a Black family if both partners involved are not Black. So the reason why some of the quote unquote, air quote, pro-Black Negroes kind of sort of get like a side eye is because when they try to advocate for something, it's like, I'm looking at your life and you're telling me white supremacy exists, okay? You're telling me white privilege exists, okay? You're telling me the white man is racist, and you're telling me all these things, okay? And then I look across the aisle and there's a white person that you're married to, and I'm sitting there looking like, well, how did you break through the mold? It's going to diminish everything you have to say. Like at YBLS, I know I wasn't the only one. I could be honest. When that Black lady got up there with her white husband, something in me, and it's not even about me having an issue with her being married. When you're getting up there and you're trying to tell me about Black history, and then all of a sudden you say your husband, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, my mind just went ahead and went somewhere else, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to hear you tell me about Black history.
I'm not gonna
I'm dying to inject into this because first of all, I totally disagree with my niece on these issues. For the fact of the matter is, we don't know if we're 100% Black anyway. We go by. Well, let me finish. We go by the labels described in this country that I'm of mixed ethnicity because I have Black in me. I'm considered Black regardless. Number one. Number two, when we have issues that's social, we have issues that's inclusive to all races. So if I have a white person that supports something that I'm pro-Black on, why would I knock that? That's like saying you shouldn't vote because you're this. Blacks should just vote in a certain category here, whites here, this race here, that race here. But we're all in this melting pot, inclusive of what we're doing. So for you to say, I can't walk down the street with a sign supporting white this and white that if I'm Black, or I can't do this with Black when I got mixed kids. It's that you're discriminating. You're saying that your voice doesn't count. It's about your voice more than it is about your color. If you support something and you're strongly believing in that, you don't have. How many Blacks don't even know their history? Don't even know what's going on. It's conformity, like I was talking about last time. Sometimes you jump on board because the Blacks jump on board. A lot of times they're not even educated as to why things are what they are. Like with the shootings, I'm not supporting the police that did these murders and things like that. But a lot of people got upset and angry because everybody else got angry. How many times you see the Black guy on the corner? Everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows who his mother is. That's so dope. And then turn around the next day and have two Irish guys slinging the same crack on that corner. Everybody and their mother run out the house and say, "Oh, they bring these drugs into our community. What kind of thing is this?" Simply because they're white. And I know this for a fact because when I lived in Nicetown, we experimented and we did that. And I had friends from school come and pretend to sling dope. And everybody came out of the houses was mad, but we all comfortable with Johnny standing there because we all know him. We're afraid he's going to run up in our house and do something, this, that, and the other. So we just let him go ahead and destroy our community that way. A lot of Blacks aren't educated on the issues, social issues or political issues that's going on. A lot of them just jump on board because it's a Black thing to do.
Hold on, AJ. Before I give it to AJ has a question. I just want to say in regard to what you said, I might be misquoting you, but you said something to the effect that Black, not everyone's Black or something like that. We are all Black. And I actually talked to Solomon about this earlier in the week. When you look back at history, right, where Adam and Eve were created, right, even if you don't believe in the Bible, where man was first found, it was Kenya. There has been linkages back from Europe, Jamaica, every race linked back to Kenya. So at the end of the day, we're all Black. Whether people want to acknowledge that, that's their issue. Go ahead, and AJ, I'm going to let you speak and say what you need to say.
No, okay. So I'm just playing devil's advocate. This is kind of a thought experiment. I really enjoyed this conversation. But for those of us here that are Black conservatives, and I would probably say the majority of us are in this conversation, what would you guys say to Barack Obama? The consensus is, and I think you guys will all agree, that he didn't really do that much for the Black community while he was in office, given the amount of power that he had, both in the executive branch, obviously being president, and in the legislative branch, holding a Democratic majority in both houses of Congress. But his wife is all kinds of blackety black. So are you going to give him? Are you just going to give him a pass as far as being pro-black, even though the evidence is pretty clear that
Families from Africa
was relatively not.
This doesn't apply.
He
His
was
family's
not very pro.
He's blacker than all of us.
Nah, I'm not gonna give him that credit.
So that's what I'm saying. So either you're not going to give him credit for being pro-black, which I agree with, or you're not going to give him credit for being black, period, which I won't agree with. But in either case, it's almost like a catch-22. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, I would say, AJ, I would just basically say on the Barack Obama point, I don't, and this is just me personally, I don't consider him the first black president. I consider him the first mixed race president. And it's not because of everything he did. That's just how I look at it. Because to me, I looked at, and and I always say, go back and look at Barack Obama. There was nothing black about the man. So when he got in office, everybody jumped onto him because, in my opinion, it's kind of like the show, he's blackish. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I understand by our definition, he is black. But the only thing to me, when it comes to Barack Obama, and this is, like you said, because the majority of us are conservative, if you take Michelle out of the picture, if the woman he dated before Michelle was the woman he married, I'm just talking about, like, let's just take his last girlfriend before Michelle. If he married her and he was a Republican, he would have been the most hated person in the black community ever. He would have
been the pariahs.
I mean, because seriously, I'm not trying to knock Barack Obama, and I had this discussion with my sister yesterday at dinner. I'm not knocking Barack Obama for how he spoke, how he acted. I'm just saying, basically, and it's no offense to him, and I'm not even saying this trying to call him out or call him a sellout or Uncle Tom or anything, but he basically lived a white life.
But
that's what I'm saying, Naomi. So he's a guy that he produced. I would say that his babies are at least 75% black. But that's what I was saying. But he was not a very big advocate for being pro-black.
No, but that's what I was saying. He wasn't a pro-black advocate. Like, if you compare him to, like, some of the ones like Dr. Umar Johnson and even Don Lemon, I would say Don Lemon is more pro-black than Barack Obama. Just in regard to rhetoric, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, if we're talking about, what we see from these two individuals being outspoken. No, I agree with Solomon. He's a mixed race. And this is kind of what I said to Solomon in a debate we had with another podcast earlier. Like, because my son is mixed race and can speak two languages, he doesn't get the benefit of being labeled black. Like, he's not black enough. My daughter, because of how she looks.
Enough. Who defines what's black enough? Who makes this definition? That's all I want to know. The culture. Small-minded people are making these points of of interest because we listen to the masses. If the masses say it has to be law. I can't side with that. We can't just let society make those decisions. We can't say because we don't want society to say that we're not pro-black. Like I said earlier, a lot of people jump on board with things without having all of the facts. They jump on board because it seems to be the black thing to do. If I like Trump and I support Trump, and most blacks are against me for doing that, but if I see some values and issues politically that I support him for, why shouldn't I? If you support someone and you want to walk down the street with a sign and you want to support something that's black because you live in a good neighborhood around whites and all of this, what would stop you from doing it? If we were that prehistoric in thinking like this, then a lot of the barriers that we have as black people as a collective, we wouldn't have crossed those barriers if we didn't break those lines. So we can't just keep living in the past. We can't keep living in a way where, I shouldn't do this because I think the masses and the society is going to look at me this way, or look at that way, because they're simply not paying your bills. You got to just do what you believe in, and it boils down to what you believe in and who you choose to be with, and the more we mix in cultures, the better understanding we'll have of other cultures to begin with. But if your preference is to stay in one lane, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just simply that you can't say, I disagree with what you're saying, if you're pro-black, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this because you won't be considered pro-black because someone out there decided this is what's the
I was
definition of
saying
being pro-black.
we would hold no weight behind it. I mean, if we're
Why not?
because public perception is everything.
Why should the public matter what your true deep beliefs are?
So now
Why should you care?
Yeah, let me interject real quick. Naomi, I think
Yeah.
what Thomas is saying is that the fact that somebody's credibility to actually take action that's pro-black is undermined if they're not married to a black woman. He's saying that to him that's BS. That if they're helping black people, that we really shouldn't care, about their progeny.
AJ,
Eleanor Roosevelt, for instance. Eleanor Roosevelt was strong in blacks in over the years. If you listen to your history, yeah, go there because
every night,
yeah,
and nobody gives them any fucking.
You have, if you do your history, you'll look at, there has been some prominent whites that have helped us along the way as a collective.
Go make yourself.
But,
okay, so then why is
but jumping on this pro-black wagon because you don't want this complexion from society that I'm not pro-black enough because society thinks so. Then you're undercutting your own beliefs.
No, I don't think I am undercutting my own beliefs because the same weight that we give Abraham Lincoln for freeing the slaves, we should be giving Thomas Jefferson for laying up with a black woman for over 20 years and giving her commitment, freeing her and her family, and now having great grandkids who are a part of his lineage who are black that was just discovered in August. That's what
they made a TV show about the Jeffersons too.
Oh, next up, Matthew. I know Matthew's here. We're gonna give Matthew the floor.
Is he ready?
Yeah, Matthew's ready via chat. I mean, Matthew.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So here's the thing. I support mixed races because here's the thing. If we separated races and said white people only marry and date white people, and black people only marry and date black people, we would have incredible problems in our society. It's almost like I love it when white people go to HBCUs because that integration breaks down on the stereotypes. It breaks down the misnomers about, oh, because you're black, you're going to be underperforming. Because you're black, you're not going to have, the right stepping stone in life and whatever not.
That's right.
I love when white people go to HBCUs. The same way I think that when white people like to date black people, it shows progress with regards to the race issue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are pro-black, you would want that to continue to happen. If you are pro-black, you would want white people to be like, yeah, I see nothing wrong with marrying a black sister. I see nothing wrong with a black brother.
That's right. I agree 100%.
Progress. That is pro-black. When we break down those barriers. Now, here's the thing. You had white people that were a part of Freedom Rides, that were on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that were walking hand in hand with black folk. And without white folk, watch this, without white folk, the civil rights, and anybody can argue with me as much as they want, but without white folk being in the trenches with black folk, sitting at the lunch counters, they were spit on. They had rocks thrown at them. White folks were beaten in the civil rights era for fighting.
That's right. Absolutely true.
Wait, Matthew, and hold on. I get what you're saying, Matthew, but see, I think where the disconnect comes in, and I'm only going to speak to myself, where the disconnect comes in is when it's not the fact that they cannot do anything to assist, right? That's not where I feel like I'm not going to say the problem comes in. But see, for me, it is the increasingly negative rhetoric that is had, and then you try to go back and do something else. Like, for example, if there was a white woman who, all she talks about all day is black on black crime. She talks about how all black men are thugs. She talks about, you know, they're uneducated, they're this, they're that. And then you go to her house and there's a black man there, you would kind of sort of be looking like, yo, what's going on? Because I look at Van Jones the same way. I remember when he said after Trump won, it was a white lash. But Van Jones, you have to go home to this white woman. That's what I say. That's my only sort of like issue with it, because I understand what you're saying, Matthew, when you talk about without white people, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. I'm in full agreement with you. My only issue is, and like you said, everything else that you said to me was true. My problem is, like I said, when you start talking about how awful white people are. Like if the white people who were helping us out during the civil rights movement were calling us the N-word and calling us coons and all these other things when we weren't around, but then they go on the bridge and they're getting spit on with us, then to me, that's the equivalent of the black person who is, oh, white people this and this white supremacy and it's systematic. And then all of a sudden you go home and there's a white woman living with them.
Right. The hypocrisy. Right.
Correct. That's the hypocritical nature of it. Like I said, I'm not going to say.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's the hypocritical side that I see, and that's the one that I have a problem with. Like I remember Umar got a lot of flack because he's talking about he's a Pan-Africanist. He don't respect Frederick Douglass because Frederick Douglass married a white woman later on in life, and I'm like, dude, you're crazy. But he'll go on, and I remember he got a lot of flack because he had a picture with a woman who is non-white. She was from like Honduras, but she claimed to be a black Honduran, but she was lighter than Naomi. So I'm sitting there like,
going off that, right, Solomon, and this is for everyone, whoever wants to chime in. When we talk about these situations like that, what immediately comes to mind, and I don't know if you guys seen her Netflix documentary, but Rachel Doza, right? If we're talking about white people being in the trenches, working towards white and black, you know, integration, right? Because we're still dealing with that. We think of Malcolm X, who was a specific advocate for not mixing race but being considered equal, saying that no matter how far the white man will go to help you, he's really not helping you. He's helping himself. So then we think about Rachel Doza now in recent times and how she claims to be black and she has a black son who's really her adopted brother. She has mixed race children. She's the token black single mother because she doesn't have a baby dad who takes care of his kid, you know, and she's out struggling. What do we feel about her? Is she black? Is she pushing?
About the Malcolm X piece, that was Malcolm's opinion. Malcolm had the opinion that whites will help us, but that's his opinion because that's his prejudice. It's not, and I'm saying that in a bad context. I'm just saying that's his belief for that particular time in history. We don't live in those days today. Whereas, as like my man said, we can integrate and we'll learn and educate from each other. If we put fences up around each other's race, then we can't adapt, learn, and break down the barriers that go on. But Malcolm lived in a different time where our racial struggles were prevalent. They were just out in the open where you could call a person a nigger and it wouldn't be a situation on the streets in the 60s and 50s and things like that.
Okay, on Rachel Dolezal, if you're not born like black, at least with somebody, your parent or something being black, you're not black. I don't care how much you advocate for black people. At the end of the day, if you don't have a black parent or grandparent or something like that, you're not black. I'm sorry. Even with a black person acting white, whatever that may be, at the end of the day, you're still black. So, I mean, it's in plain sight. I don't know what better way to comment on that.
I'm the denominator is if you support something that's positive for everyone, regardless of race, then why shouldn't you do that? You don't have to say, oh, well, I've never walked in his shoes or her shoes, and I don't really know how they really are, yet I'm going to support it, and you're going to knock that? You know, how can you learn what they went through unless you bond with them and find out how their history went and what their history was all about, and as a collective come together for resolution for all of us to benefit from it.
Hey, but you wouldn't date her, right? Would you date her?
Date who?
Rachel Dolezal. Would you date her? Because to me, I feel like
I don't know who she is.
Okay, well, basically, like she was this white woman who pretended to be black. All right.
Oh, okay.
And then she was the head of the NAACP. And then when they found out that she wasn't black, she started getting a lot of.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I don't think so. Again, for me, it's more attraction and other underlying things. So
Well,
I don't know.
I'm glad you said that, right? So you know these are recorded. In last week's podcast, towards the end of the podcast, we were kind of getting into this, and this is for Thomas. And you mentioned an experience you had with online dating. Can you bring that?
Oh yeah, with the girl with the blonde hair. It was I didn't put the my preferences were white, Asian, Hispanic, because I just wanted to kind of sift through that. And this black woman gets on with blonde hair and chews my head off because I didn't mention. She said you should have mentioned all races. I said it was a matter of preference. I just simply added those races so that way I cut to the chase, so to speak, for me. And she had an attitude about this, but she had blonde hair, and I said, well, in quoting Malcolm X, with the processing of the hair from back in the day, like he did, and others do today, from the conch or whatever they used to call it to the weave today, I said his attitude was, which they're trying to represent a white idea of beauty. And when I said that to her in a kind way, I didn't challenge what she said. I accepted her opinion. She got back on and she took the wig off. So I guess she kind of chewed on what I was saying. And then she said, well, you should really be strong in your black sisters and this and that. In other words, she was trying to say I should conform to just dating black women. And she had this disposition that I didn't like black women and my preference was everybody but black women. And that wasn't it. And I finally just said, well, if you don't like my commentary, just don't read it. You know, she started out with saying, I'm not trying to hook up with you, but you still read my profile.
Yeah,
so,
but Thomas, you have to understand you're a psychology guy, so you have to understand that when you see, if you are, put yourself in their shoes, if you're a black woman and you see a profile that has, from their point of view, it looks like every race except for them. I think it's a reasonable assumption to make that a lot of black women are going to take that personally. Now, some of them might go that extra mile to come and try to clap back and stuff like that. But out of line and being offended there.
Right. Not to cut you off, but her attitude, she should have inquired with that kind of dialogue to see if she's already made her mind up. I don't like black women, and that was the gist of her dialogue. Rather than say why didn't you? You could have said why, then I would have explained it to her. And then she's flowing white. She's got flowing blonde hair now. You wear what color hair you want. People walk around with green hair and all of this. But you're so anti-white, yet you wear blonde hair. Genetically, you can't possibly have blonde hair.
Was she dark skin? Was she dark?
Very dark. Dark as street. She was as dark as street asphalt.
That's a no. That's a no for me.
Wait. Was she fat?
Huh?
Was she fat?
Yeah, she was a heavy woman.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, curvy on her profile.
Well, today's definition is
Naomi.
As compared to
That's out of line, Naomi. Stop.
You got curvy.
Yeah, she was curvy plus. She's extremely huge.
Well, but see, like, okay, like I've been on. I get the whole dating site thing as well because I had gone on some sites before, and I would see the same thing where someone would have on their profile no black guys. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that plenty of times. You know, where it'll say like no black guys. You know, there've been like, you know, back in the day when other sites were still functioning, you know, there would be certain areas that you go in, i.e. like Backpage, and then there would be like chicks on there that would be like, hey, no black guys. And I'm like, well, you don't really have, I mean, like, how you gonna be picky about what you do? But it was a situation where I kind of understand that these women still had a preference, even though most of the time they would charge it.
Wait. Are you talking about the prostitutes on Backpage?
No, I'm talking about the relationship section, but sometimes there would be a relationship section, but they would have like.
In reference to that, I know you're talking about the prostitutes that got it shut down. In regards to that, because
I'm gonna burn Sharice's ears, man.
I've seen it on Instagram, and prostitutes would put no black guys, and it would be because black guys were cheap and tried to scam them most of the time. That's like when you talk.
I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know anything about it.
You don't have a separate Backpage podcast now, man.
No. What I'm saying is, you know, when they had like let's be honest, they had like Craigslist and Backpage. They had like personals, right? But if you went to the Backpage personals, it wasn't. it wasn't no dating going on. You know what I'm saying? But you still see
That's true. She knows too.
right. But even though, like, the funny part about it to me was like, okay, even though you're charging, you're still saying like, even if I want to pay for it, you're not gonna do it because I'm black.
Never
Or
the
like,
standards.
No lie. Who has that page open right now in another tab?
or they would say like no black men under 40 or no black men under 50. Like I heard, you know, that's what I used to heard, you know, from some friends who were on it. I kind of heard us, but that's what I'm trying to say. I think that this going back to the Dolezal part, I do believe that for her, and that's the one thing. Like I said, I know what Thomas was saying. I think the advocacy part is the one part that I'm going to say. If I want to advocate for anybody, I don't have to assume the identity of whoever I'm trying to assist. That's the reason why I think Rachel Dolezal got so much flack. It wasn't because she wasn't trying to help black people, talk about police brutality, all the things she wanted to do. It's the fact that you had to be black to do it. And then I even look at it from a dating standpoint to confirm her blackness. Like my thing is, and this is another thing when we talked about basically, do you have any viability or are you going to be able to get your point across with the pro-black message? If I am confident in my blackness, I can date whoever I want to, and I'm not concerned about that. But it's a situation for her, she won't date a white man. Let me tell you why, because if she gets pregnant, it'll confirm that she's white. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's like if I'm a black man and I have a baby with a white woman, I understand that my child is now mixed. And it's not like I'm like, oh, damn, you know what? I'm really not white and I have dark skin. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if I was to the point where I believed I was white, let's just go cliche. Because I'm a Republican, I am white. You understand what I'm saying? I like white culture. I don't listen to rap music. I hate BET. Just go down the list of things that you hate. I don't watch black movies. My favorite comedian is Will Ferrell. I don't like Kevin Hart. I mean, you can just go down the list of things that you can just try to sort of take your blackness away, right? But if I have a baby with a white woman, it's going to confirm that I'm not white. You understand what I'm saying? But I feel for her, she did the reverse because she wanted to believe she was black so bad. You know how strong that African DNA is. So she can have a son who looks black, and it makes her feel more secure in her false blackness. And that's just how I looked at it.
Right.
You know,
Well,
I
I'll say
don't know.
something. Oh, go ahead.
Who's
Go
talking?
ahead.
Is that Matthew?
Yeah, Matthew, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna let her go.
Who? You said her. No, I'm saying we said her. Who are you referring to, Matthew? Naomi?
Oh, was that Naomi that was talking?
No, go ahead. You're good.
No, yeah, he was like, yeah, we want you to go. Go ahead. Matthew.
Okay. What I wanted to say was that I like what you said about preference, right? It has a lot to do about preference, but at the same time, it also has to do a lot with results. I would not get upset about, like, look at the guy in Michigan, right? James, that was running for Senate, and he's black. He's married to a white person, and he's been providing economic benefit for black people. His family has too. So it's all about results. What results are they getting? Umar Johnson is not getting a lot of results in the black community. You know why? Because half the black community is against the philosophy that he espouses. But when you have people that are really getting into the nitty gritty and producing results, that's what matters. Nobody will care about who you.
Yeah, Matthew, I understand what you're saying, but see, the other thing about it is in let's say in John James's case, it sort of fits the cliche. You understand what I'm saying? It's not about the results. I understand what you're saying about the preference, but especially in John James's case, it doesn't work in I guess kind of sort of the point that we're trying to make about interracial dating, because it's not like John James came out and his wife wasn't like, he's not if he was a Democrat, it would be different, because then he would probably be going down the whole white supremacy and racism. He'd be going down that narrative. But because he's a Republican, he's just going to be the cliche sellout who doesn't like black women. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's just how it works. It doesn't mean that he is that way. It's not even saying with all the things that him and his father have done, all the employees that he has, it basically at the end of the day, and that's why I say I agree with Thomas when he says, like, why does it even matter what these quote unquote the black Twitter or the air quote council of black people think about whatever it is he's doing? Because at the end of the day, it's not like their wisdom has us in some sort of great area. You know what I'm saying? We can't even fix this pants thing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we just want to start going into issues that are here. It's like, you have a problem, or you would look at John James, who's a multimillionaire, who was a Senate person, and you'll call him, just because A, he's a Republican, B, he has a white wife, you'll call him every name in the book. But the guy who walks into the corner store, who doesn't take care of his kids, whose boxers are showing, that's perfectly fine with you, and that's just a normal
He's real.
black. Yeah, that's a normal black male. So I think the reason why this is odd to me is because it talks about what is considered normal black male behavior and what is considered like this. Because I had a girl one time tell me online, and I thought it was crazy. She said, "I'm not saying you're not a good man." She said, I'm just saying you're not a good black man. And I didn't know what she meant by that.
Yeah, and I've honestly speaking, I've been on one date with a white woman in my entire life, and I've been called that by black, and I've been called not a good black man by black women.
For one
So
day.
to me, in the token of black men not being able to help, I think that it's kind of bullshit, and it's kind of arbitrary. Like, if you're going to draw the line there, then that's why I've been kind of posting these arguments about Obama and all these other situations, or black Republicans not being able to speak, or Barack Obama not being able to speak, or John James not being able to speak. But in reality, if you're an oppressed class, or if you're a class that's a minority, period, I'm not going to say any help is good, but it definitely raises eyebrows when there are certain situations like what Solomon said, where so-and-so can speak even though he doesn't have his shit together, but then there's another person that's just killing it in life, and we don't.
Go ahead, Therese.
I just want to say, I think that it's very sad that we have this stereotype of just black males in the black community in general. We need to do something about this, because I'm sick of having this stereotype of we're ghetto, we don't do anything for black males don't do anything for their families, we'll never be anything, just stereotypes like that. We don't take care of our families. We need to do, like, what can we do about this stereotype?
Well, I'll tell you what I think that we could do. It's the thing that it's inbred. The genesis starts at home. You know, we hate those stereotypes. We hate all stereotypes, but yet, statistically speaking, we fulfill those stereotypes. That's why you see more blacks in prison. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, in Dallas, Texas, it's like 10-15% black, but 60% of that population of males are incarcerated. We got to stop going along with these things. Mm-hmm. We got to put values within our families so that we don't go down. And I understand when you have socioeconomic distress and things like that in communities, but going to sell dope isn't the answer. You know, how come collectively you can't start your own thing and make your own money? I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but when you poison your own community, like I said earlier, everybody knows who the dope dealer is, but they don't. You walk past them every day. And don't say anything to him, and he's still slinging every day. You'll talk about it within your own confines, within your own home, but you don't collectively, and I've done this, collectively go door to door, grab the community and say, you got to leave and get out.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's a little.
We got one more person. We're gonna end the official show with Cordell, because it seems like every show we end, Cordell's the last speaker.
Oh shit!
So after Cordell speaks, we're gonna go into the after show. I'm just warning all the panelists. The after show gets ratchet, okay? Whatever you want on the after show. It's a totally different vibe. We want to encourage you to just be yourself.
Will this be filmed?
Yeah, so after Cordell, we'll go ahead and close out this portion. Go ahead, Cordell.
I didn't realize that I was going to be speaking again. I was really really all I was trying to do is ask Sharice, like, who's making that assumption about you, and my response to that would be exactly what Thomas said. What Thomas said was 100% on point. I have nothing more to say. He nails it right on the head. We got to do better for ourselves, you know. Duke Ellington once said that when he was growing up, he was taught in his public school that as representative of the Negro race, we want to carry ourselves with dignity and pride because we had strong racial pride. And we don't do that anymore. We like make ourselves a hot mess, and that's kind of what Mbaga is all about. But you know, let's not. I mean, we don't have to go there, but that's really all I've been, really all about. You know, making Black people outstanding citizens, and some people are down for it, others aren't. Can't force people. I don't know what anybody else has to say, but I don't. I really wasn't here for this discussion. So you guys are talking about Black dating. Okay, so let me. I guess I can tell my theory about what happens to some people who date interracially. I said this in the private YBLS chat recently this week. It was like, oh, there are certain types of Black people who they like to date the Black stereotypes, and then after a while they want to get all bougie, and then they switch immediately over to the white people, and it's really a shame, and that definitely happens, and I definitely see it happen, and I think that's just not something that we should uphold. That we should be thinking that white people are this new way of acting. How come we just can't? I'm not saying you have to date within our race. It's fine if you want to go out, but why don't we have that upper standard for ourselves? When we date people of our own color, why don't we have that higher standard for ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank all the panelists for coming today. We're going to go into the after show. You can catch us every Monday night and Thursday night live on YouTube. If you want to join in the discussion, feel free to message us on Instagram at 50 Shades of Red Podcast. Send us a message on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. All you have to do is search 50 Shades of Red Podcast. Thank you, guys.